I'm moving on to introducing KLA, Steffi Matterson and Kevin Britz, who did some work there. And I'll tell you a little bit of the story. Steph and her EXCO team worked with me. We had a great time using one of our leadership development programs. And then we agreed that it'd be a good idea to impact on the other members of the team, the sort of younger team members. And we had a couple of interventions. And how Kevin got involved is that after one of the interventions, we started to look for a facilitator who would have a better chemistry with Stephanie's team. Hello, Stephanie. Welcome.
Hi, Greg. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And Kevin was the man. So Kevin's had an amazing time working with Stephanie's team, and I'm going to hand over to them. And I look forward to hearing what you guys have got to talk about. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. Hi, Steph. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you for making the time today. I'm so glad that you could. I know that there were schedules to be met and it wasn't as easy, but you're here, and that's the most important thing. So, Steph, South Africa, we've been through a tough time. Speaking about the COVID pandemic, the challenges that we've had. As a leader in South Africa, you still chose, in this difficult time, you still chose to implement and empower your team. How did you get to that decision?
Well, as Greg says, we had done the course. So the leadership team had done the course. So we knew a little bit about what it can do, and we understood the power of it. And I think there were a couple of really big influencing thoughts. The first was that we understood that as a small business that we had just purchased, we couldn't stand still. We knew that we were either going to move forward or we were going to go backwards. And we had come into COVID quite strong. And so we just didn't want to we didn't want to lose that momentum. So we invested. And I think it's important here as well to we had understood the power of personal leadership and that we needed it throughout all the levels of the organization if we were going to innovate, if we were going to actually be able to survive what was a real interruption to the business. As a research business, not being able to talk to people and not being able to see people is a big deal. So we really had to completely reinvent the business. And so we understood that we had to empower people, and personal leadership was the key to that. I think that was our first governing sort of principle. And the second thing is that we had kind of understood that what you want the most is what you get. And, I always use the analogy of, do you want to lose the 5 kilos or do you want the croissant?
Yes.
Life's full of trade-offs. And so we thought, actually, do we want to succeed or do we want to survive? And, what you want is always going to trump the most. And so what I had understood is that people often say, you want to succeed, but they don't invest the time or the money. So we that's what we did. We said we have to invest. We want to succeed, and we're going to invest in doing that. And I think that was ultimately the big moving factor as to why we decided to invest at a time which was quite scary to do so.
Yeah, I can imagine. But now, when we first engaged, it was decided that we want to look at the as mentioned now, the Grandmasters of Success program, and we use it as a team, like we heard from our previous guests. But I want to sort of just touch on the why and the how and the what experience you kind of took away from that, because I think from a team I remember. Getting a list of the names and phoning every individual and speaking to them and saying, guys, this is what we want to do, and explaining and just getting everyone's buy-in to really get them on board with what it is we're doing. Because, you guys are busy. There was a lot of work. There's COVID. There's, all these pressures. So, it took a bit of convincing, but at the end of the day, you can speak to it. That why this program? How do you think it impacted, and what did it impact?
So it was remarkable. So the impact was simply remarkable, and I think because the program takes you on a journey that you can own, and there are a few key steps, and I think self-discovery is a huge thing. So not only personal discovery, but discovery of your team. And it sounds like a really small step, but goodness, having done it myself, it is very, very hard to know what it is that you are on this earth to do. And so to discover who you are, what you want, and how the team has commonalities and how the team has differences, that's completely life-changing. So, to know what you're trying to build in your own life and for the business, beyond the money. The money is a small thing. What is a big deal for the individual. What does success look like? It's a very, very hard question to answer. And I think that the LMI process really allows you to understand what this looks like for yourself and for your team. And then it takes that understanding of yourself and it kind of helps you build this sort of very authentic alignment throughout the business. So we're a team of 35 people, and we felt that alignment. We felt that sort of sense of, okay, we're all beginning to move. We're all knowing where we want to go, and there is no sense of forcing alignment. There's none of this rah stuff that I don't really like at all. So when everyone understands that they are building the direction, it's not being imposed. There's huge magic in that, because it becomes that energy. I think the team before were talking about the energy that helps you move forward and helps you actually connect and helps you do what you want to do. Yes, in a sales environment, but in the business environment, that's also absolutely critical. And then when the course allows you to understand what you want and then align with your team members around what you want, and then to actually articulate the goal, I think that is where you really move the needle. And that's where you can really sort of start sharing vision, and you can start really moving both people in their own little space and the whole business as a whole. So for me, what the impact was that LMI gave us a process, all of us, from me to all the staff who went in the program, to think clearly, to articulate clearly, and then gives you the tools to actually act on that and to move on it and to experience that shift. So ultimately, we've tripled the business, the bottom line, in 18 months. And which is, we took over a business, Beverly's words sort of run true when she said, they bought the business at a time when it was really, really in trouble, when they bought Rico. And KLA was also, it was not healthy. And we had sort of jumped in, bought this thing, and actually, so we profited it. We tripled our profit, and then in 2020 and 2021 achieved, huge prize of platinum achievement, seal of achievement in the Deloitte Best Company Survey. So it feels like those visions of success are really coming to life. Yeah.
That is amazing. I mean, just to hear it and from your position to speak of it like this is, and that's the point. That was, why we were hoping that so your appointment did cancel. So that's a good thing. But I mean, one of the questions is around psychological safety, which is a buzzword being thrown around in the world at the moment, where inclusion and belonging become critical to the interconnected, high-performing culture. So, how does something like the GMS program then impact that inclusion and belonging? Because we also took people from, different levels in the organization and put them in a group and worked with them. And even though they were at different levels, the guys had a certain take on that, which was so beautiful to be part of and witness.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, I mean, you were critical in that. I think that what the program does is it takes people to understand where they're going. They can see their part they play. They're no longer a cog in a wheel. They feel like a meaningful player in the journey. And that, when you know what you need to do and how to play your part, I think what that does is it starts allowing you to contribute. It starts allowing you to highlight what you need to be more effective. And look, the program allowed us to see the gaps. For me to pretend that KLA was a little heavenly paradise was absolutely wrong. There were gaps. And what it did is it allowed people, well, firstly, seeing them allows you to close it. And it allowed people to say, well, actually, these are my barriers, but here's some solutions, because they didn't get stuck at the barriers. so there was structure work to be done, and there was feedback mechanisms to improve, and that's still ongoing. But what it did is that it allowed people to understand their roles, to feel safer to share, and understand that there was investment in them. Investment in people actually allows them to feel like, okay, I matter. So that in and of itself is also sort of a contributing thing. And people feel like they understand that it's a journey, and they feel like they're part of it. So that is very much sort of a huge driver of feeling like I'm included. And it also spurred on other programs to help us kind of bring that sense of inclusion and psychological safety into the business.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the overview of the program as well. How do management, the keys to accomplishment, how to master time, organization, the power of enthusiasm. And I think just to reiterate what you were saying now is part of what the team was experienced was, and from an outsider, working with a team, a lot of them felt that they suddenly had a voice. Right. And they suddenly were included, and they felt like, wow, I'm so glad that I'm being part of this program. And here's my manager sitting in, in the same conversation as me, and I can hear that my manager has goals and dreams as well, et cetera, et cetera.
And Kevin, it's hard in our business because we have an intellectual capital business. It's a research business. So where all the researchers sit and all the strategists sit, those are the guys who bring in the research systems, tech, and the development that we need in order to do our work. But it's very easy to have an us and them divide. And the LMI program really helped close that. It helped people understand that this hand can't do what they need to do without this hand. So that kind of interconnectedness and understanding interdependencies was also enabled, and that the goals are the same for everybody, no matter where you sit.
So I want to touch on one of the things that we did speak about is, and I didn't preface that at first because I wanted guys to just start with the program and build a bit of rapport with them. But at the end of the day, we went through the program itself and ended off with their vision boards. Tell us a bit of that, because I remember inviting Greg to that process, and everyone showcasing. Everyone had 20 minutes of talking, and I was completely stunned by it, and I was like, wow, the stuff that is coming out of these people. You don't expect it. It's completely unexpected, and it is every time you go through this process. But from having worked with them and being close to them, like what did you experience just with going through that at the end of the day and the vision board process?
Gosh, it was so humbling, and on so many levels. Firstly, that they had been given the space, which they recognized themselves, that they'd been given the space to think about what they wanted. Being able to have been given the tools to get there, Kevin, I think they understood how they had hamstrung themselves in dreaming and in wanting to achieve, and so to witness not only the dreams but the belief that had kind of triggered within themselves that they could get there was just remarkable. And on the other side, the openness and the transparency with which they shared things. I mean, people broke down to sharing really personal things. So it's and that's that kind of really authentic alignment where you're bringing your whole self to the business. You're not the schizophrenic employee and person. So to witness the willingness to share and the empowerment of these individuals and being able to say, this is what I want and this is who I am, and actually I believe I can, and I think I have the tools to get there, was an unbelievably humbling experience for all of us who were invited to listen to what they had to say.
I was in on that, and I'm still trying to wonder why it all took years.
Sorry,
Greg, you were.
I was it's very emotional to see that happen and to see these people and not unburden themselves, but just share in such a safe environment, I think. So what it did was it created a safe environment. And I remember a couple of things, Steph. I remember the very first time I met you. You probably were sitting there thinking, can this really happen? And then you took the chance. You said, okay, well, yeah, I think it can. And so there was a connection at that time. I also remember being in your boardroom when we did the one-page strategic plan.
Yeah.
You guys called it something else? You gave it another name?
I don't know. We call it the house.
Okay. So,
yeah, the house.
The house. But in that conversation, we set up the desire to be the employer of choice in your industry.
Yes.
And I think your rolling of this program out created that reality.
Yeah.
That you now created that environment where people knew that this was an employer of choice. So well done on that. I really, really loved it. Really good. And maybe I was crying because I missed out on the experience. And Kevin,
yeah, well, big, like it speaks for itself, right? We have proof, right? So, Steph, what do you recommend about the LMI? Like, as one of the, if you could tell people out there today, like, what do you recommend about the LMI? What impact do you think it can actually have on people, besides all the wonderful things you've said now?
So I think for me, the LMI program is fuel. We don't give ourselves food. We don't fuel ourselves. We don't, we are stuck. We work jolly hard. We work hard at enabling others, at creating success, at helping clients succeed, at helping teams succeed. The LMI program is fuel. It fuels a few things. It fuels discovery, self-discovery, and to do that, and how it carves out the time to do that, I don't know. But it's through the program, that's what it does. So you're fueling discovery, you're fueling thought. There's so much stuff to think about and to ponder and to create other thoughts, and it fuels creativity. So that is the real fuel that allows you to move. And then what it does is it builds and empowers. So it creates and builds this alignment, which in our business we wouldn't be able to move without. And it builds and creates clarity. And clarity for me is the thing that has really allowed us to win. And there's a whole lot of quotes around clarity, but clarity, without focusing and getting to the clarity, you simply cannot lead. You cannot lead without that clarity and without that focus, and you cannot motivate without the clarity, and you certainly cannot plan, and you cannot communicate. And, as Sean was saying earlier, actually in times of change, you need to lead and you need to communicate. And the LMI program allowed us to do that. I think that if the leadership team hadn't actually done the LMI program ahead of COVID, I think KLA would be in a very, very different space. So it really allowed us to lead with great certainty, and our staff have really applauded us. The leadership team in the Deloitte survey got 98% achievement on leading by example, on communication, on facilitating trust and security, because we were empowered to do that. We could communicate with so much transparency because we knew where we were going. So it allows you to do that, and it gives you a path that you can see and the tools to actually stay on the path. So for a business like ours that has been through so many journeys to get to where it was at the beginning of COVID, where a management buyout had actually been about saving our business, we didn't only need to optimize our business. That wasn't the story for us. We really needed to reimagine it. We were not in a good place. And Beverly's words really did resound for me, and in order to reimagine something that you are so deeply involved in, you really do need a partner. It's very hard for you to, and I say it to my clients all the time, it's very hard for you to be the engineer and the visionary. So you need a partner who takes you on a journey to self-discover and to believe and to self-belief. And that's actually what LMI did. It allowed us to see and it allowed us to believe. And that is just huge, huge, huge impact.
Wow. Stephanie, it's Naomi. I'm Kevin's partner in crime on our radio show, and we had this amazing opportunity to speak to people who's been through the processes. One thing for me after the vision board, and I've just been to one last Friday with another big company of mine, is when the people presented the stuff and they are emotional. We also had lots of tears on Friday last week. It's because it's so emotional and so personal. Is the minute it's over and done with, and we have a glass of wine afterwards, people are saying, "What's next?" Do you find that within your business?
So we're now doing, because of the what's next. The what's next was that we needed a huge big restructure. So we haven't found it yet, because we've now been going through and bringing the values that Greg helped us carve out, bringing those to life and taking our values and saying, now what does that actually mean in terms of behavior?
Yeah.
Dating the values into behavior. So we've really been on a sort of organizational optimization course for now, and saying, let's build on the clarity of where we're going and the how to. So they're feeling like we're still on this journey, but I think that we will soon have to say, now how do we let's revisit those vision boards and say, now how do we keep those alive for individuals?
Fantastic, love it.
Amazing. Steph, thank you. Yeah, sorry, do you have another question?
Yeah, no, I just want to say, Steph, thank you for letting me be part of that journey. It was fantastic for me.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for leading it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today, Steph. I really appreciate it. And thank you for making the effort. And yeah, I wasn't expecting all of the stuff that you were saying, because I know I just sent you some questions around it. But it's an honor to hear that and to be, the smallest part of that to KLA. And I'm so glad that, I've been privileged to be part of that process with you guys. So thank you.
Well, I need to thank you, Kevin.
Yeah,
and Kevin, thank you for being that facilitator who was perfect for the work. You did a great job. And I think you brought more out of the team than either of us, Steph or I, expected. So well done.
Yes. Thank you very much. It was a hard team to work with. It was a skeptical team to work with, and you really did. You brought out the best in them, and have been so instrumental in helping KLA get onto the road it needed to get onto. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the time, and thanks for joining us.